Welcome, welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in, Jenny Fitstart. And thank you so much for being involved in this channel. And I really appreciate all your feedback and all your ideas. I thought it would be great to take a little break from me and get some guest speakers on these videos. And today I have a really great guest with me. This is Christy Zellman, and she is also a physical therapist. We went to school together and graduated 23 years ago. It feels like yesterday. So she has her master's in physical therapy and is also a clinical thermographer. And the reason I wanted to bring Christy here, I could have probably invited, 40 different of my classmates, but Christy, I really have always been drawn to her energy for one. The two of us could just go at it all day long. But Christy has quite a cool background on things that she believes in and her holistic approach to, I guess you could just say, life. And from there, I want to just welcome you. Thank you so much for coming and meeting,
Oh,
coming to your bedroom and me coming to my bedroom. But no, I do appreciate you
yeah.
coming. And I want to start, can you tell me a little bit, pretend that we don't know each other, but tell me a little bit about your background, what led you to PT, and then where PT took you till now.
Yeah, sure. Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so funny enough, when you're growing up, there's so many things that you can do. And I have always been an athlete. So I played sports my whole life. And originally, like, there was a time I wanted to be a teacher, and then I thought I'd want to be a PE teacher, and then just
Me too.
something physical. And actually, my grandmother, I think I was in high school, no, maybe middle school, actually, my grandmother had a knee replacement and she lived in New York. So my mom had gone back up to help kind of care for her and was telling me about this nice young man that came to her house and did exercises with her. And he was a physical therapist. And that was kind of the first time I'd ever heard about physical therapy. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Like, I can incorporate helping people and exercise. And so I think pretty much from then on, that was kind of in my mind. Like, that's what I wanted to do all through high school. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So going into college, I chose the college I went to. I went to East Carolina University, go Pirates, where Jenny and I went to PT school. I chose that because they had way back then in the mid 90s, there was only a couple of schools that had a physical therapy program. So right before I went to school, they transitioned to a master's degree. So I knew I was going to have to do post-grad education. So I knew I wanted to go there. And then I'm actually, my undergrad is in exercise physiology. So I knew if I didn't get in PT school, I needed to have a job of some sort. And so I wanted to find something that I could do. I knew I could do training with exercise phys. I could work in a lab and kind of be around the exercise and athletic industries. So that's my undergrad. Got into PT school. And then after PT school, I thought I would actually do outpatient. I thought I'd work with athletes and do all this sort of stuff. And funny enough, wound up working in geriatrics. So I worked in geriatrics for 16 years. So I did skilled nursing facilities, assisted living. I worked in a rehab hospital in the hospital. So people would leave acute care if you couldn't go home, came to us for some rehab before they figured out another destination, whether that be home or skilled nursing. So I did that. And then it got to the point where I had another business. I had a side business with kind of holistic health and education and essential oils, and was able to leave the hospital system. I just needed a change. I had 2 kids at home, and I was ready to just kind of be the master of my schedule. I didn't want to work holidays anymore, which is the case in hospitals. So yeah, so I did that. And then now I actually run a naturopathic physician office. So it's my doctor, actually. I happen to work, she was my doctor first. And then she needed someone to run her office. She decided to go all virtual, which is awesome because she can pretty much see anybody anywhere. I feel like a lot of doctors are kind of in that realm, especially the last couple of years went telehealth. So I run her office, and just me and her. It's great. So I still get to talk to people. I get to work from home. And then that led me to being a clinical thermographer, which if you don't know what that is, basically it is digital infrared imaging. So you can use it for tons of things. I think probably it's most widely and well known for like breast screening. So We can't say that it's a substitute for mammograms, but we do have a lot of ladies who use it for breast screening.
That's great. So great. And do you have you found that your PT background has helped you in what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, it's all the health and wellness stuff. So I guess it depends on your lifestyle too. So I've always been somebody who has worked out, exercised. I mean, there's a lot of people in healthcare that don't, which is funny.
Mhm.
I don't know how you wind up
I
in like
know.
that kind of industry, but I mean, there's all like nurses, doctors, physical therapists across the board. That's not, but I've always been that way. So
Mhm.
it kind of just all has blended together. So just my love of like, I know that I need to stay active. That's why I love what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
we have to stay active as we age. We to age well. Like
Right.
if we just
I
sit
love that.
on
I
the
love
couch,
that.
yeah, if we sit on the couch, then that's where we're going to be. It's funny. So I just had my ACL. I had an ACL reconstruction and meniscus repair. Uh, the end of November, I was playing soccer. I had a friend invite me to start playing soccer in a co-ed league that was supposed to be very relaxed, and it wasn't his fault at all. I just happened to go for a ball, and a man came up and pretty much just kind of ran through, kicked my leg, tore my ACL. Didn't know. Rehabbed myself for 2 years. And it's interesting. It just kind of shows you the power of exercise and rehab. You can delay surgery. You can
Mhm.
be strong. Yeah. And anyway, so I was talking to the surgeon about the necessity of surgery. Like, do I really need to do this? I've been, you know, kind of doing well without. And his statement was, well, you're hurting now, which was true. I really was hurting, which is why I went to see him. He's like, so you either do this surgery and you can, with therapy, get back to pretty much where you were before, or you don't and you wind up on the couch as a couch potato and
Mhm.
then you decline. And I was
No,
like, okay, well, that's not an option. So, here we are. I just
here
know,
you are.
yeah, here we
That's
are.
good. And
So,
thank goodness you're in the shape you were before surgery. Now,
yeah,
what's always interested me about you is your beliefs on like holistic living. And I
yeah,
think it's to me, I brought you on here really selfishly because I want to, I'm always learning, I'm always
yeah,
reading, I'm always talking to people. And I know there's people that watch my videos that are interested as well. So when I think about holistic living, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is, having the mind, body, and spirit kind of interconnected. But when
yeah,
you think of that word, how would you define it? How would you describe holistic
yeah.
living?
So the same, which is interesting because when we have people call the doctors, the naturopathic physician I work for, when people call and I'm talking to them, we do actually talk about that, how there is that mind, body, spirit connection. So however you choose to practice those three things. But also for me, I think of holistic as natural.
Mhm.
So like living as simply as possible. But when I say simply, I don't mean like minimalistic, like not
Yeah,
having not having things. I'm not a hoarder, but like I can't do the minimalistic thing. Like I need stuff.
yeah.
But I mean like simple as in ingredients. So ingredients in food, ingredients in the um, personal care products that we use.
Mhm.
Um, even and some medicines are necessary, but even just medicines, what do we absolutely need? What
Mhm.
can we work with a naturopathic physician, for example? What can I work with and get off of some of the things? So
Mhm.
kind of that simple, natural, almost like back to nature.
Yeah,
I think about like our ancestors way back in the day, like
yeah.
how did they live? Like they cooked from scratch. Well, growing your food is great. I don't do that. I I haven't gotten into the gardening yet, or getting chickens yet, although I think it would be fun. But yeah, kind
Right.
of just living that simple, whole foods, and as little chemicals as possible.
Gotcha. And have you always been this way, or was there some sort of aha moment, or
Yeah,
did you learn this from somebody or somewhere?
yeah. So there actually is a whole story of kind of how it's a journey. I call it our journey to now, how
Mhm.
we got here. Did not grow up. I should did not grow up this way.
Mhm.
I didn't grow up like unhealthy, I wouldn't say. My mom like cooked. We didn't eat a lot of fast food. My mom cooked meals for us, but we were not. of the holistic mindset. I mean, my parents don't know anything, like they didn't know anything about that. Neither did I really. I mean, I
No,
just,
and
like, we went,
not many people really did actually in the
yeah,
70s and 80s, you know.
right. Well, it was the transition from, well, I say our ancestors, but like it was the, like, as society and technology and medicine progressed, we kind of got away from the
Mhm.
simpler things, which isn't always necessarily a great thing. Some of it is, but some of it really has not been, and now we're finding out. I think it's taken some generations to figure this out. Like maybe we should go back. But yeah, so what actually happened is we had. So I have two boys. One is 16 now, and one is 11. But when my older one was a baby, probably one or so, he started getting frequent ear infections, like one after another after another. We were on all the antibiotics. We did tubes, which helped a little bit, but he was still getting ear infections. We did all these things, and it wasn't really helping. And then we weren't sleeping. And then we were like sleeping on the floor in his room. My husband and I, our health like became trash because
Mhm.
nobody was sleeping. You know, I would cook for us as well, but I mean, we'd still eat some like bagged meals and some fast food and stuff. Like I didn't really look at ingredients to the point of what I do now because I didn't
Right.
know.
Right.
So as my son is getting worse, we're trying to figure out, we're getting worse and we're just getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. So then after the tubes, as I said, his ear infections actually didn't stop. The only thing that did stop was that we didn't have to use oral antibiotics a lot, which was good because you don't want to use those a lot.
Mm.
And then when he was about 3, his behavior changed to where he was pretty, um, I say normal in quotes, but he was like a normal kid. And then his behavior started changing where he was um, just having some like not normal, like negative behavior. Like he bit somebody in preschool once, like just, and I mean, kids do this, but just
Mm.
behaviors for him that were not him.
Right.
And then we wound up taking him to OT. Actually, he was diagnosed with sensory processing issues, which there can be a wide range of that stuff, but his was mostly like some like motor, like handwriting, like a fine motory things,
Mhm.
and then sensory seeking. So he wanted like, there's a lot of things with sensory seeking, but he wanted the touch, hence the biting, hence like kind of being physical.
Mhm.
And so, but nobody has answers on what to do. We would
Right.
talk to the OT. She's like, well, you can try these things. And that really started my research.
Mm.
So I know, I feel like sometimes doing your own research has now gotten this bad connotation where you should just listen to whatever.
Mhm.
But in all aspects of life, we actually should be encouraged to do our own research.
Absolutely.
That's what started this. I found out and read and researched about how, and again, we weren't even really feeding him that bad of stuff, but there's preservatives and dyes in food that can alter behavior, and
Mm.
that's proven. And so that started me down the path with food. I just started reading labels, like really reading labels,
Mm.
watching what we were giving him. So that was thing one, and
Mhm.
then that kind of led to all the other things. So that led to then looking at what was in our personal care products, like the chemicals we were putting on our body, because our skin is our largest organ, right? And it
Mm.
absorbs all the things that we put on it. And then, that led into things in our home. So, like air spray, like air fresheners, plugins, candles. And that kind of led into then more holistic, like healthcare.
Mhm.
So, when we seek out medical care, instead of always going for, like, if we have a sniffle, instead of running to the doctor or trying to get over the counter meds or prescriptions, looking at how we can deal with that naturally.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
great. I love that journey for you.
Yeah.
We hear the word toxins so much.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I feel like we overuse it, we say, oh, sweat those toxins out, do
Yeah.
that, blah, blah, blah. What are the most, when you hear toxins, what are the toxins that we encounter the most each day? Or,
Yeah.
well, let me just stop there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there are several, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, the like BPA, the phthalates that are like, it was the big in the water bottles for a while, like in
Mhm.
plastics, but there also can be in like our personal care products. The phthalates, there's like
And when you say
sulfate.
personal care products, are you
Oh,
talking like
yes,
makeup and lotions
yes,
and
yep.
so
Anything,
how do we
lotions,
know?
makeup, yeah, lotions, makeup, hair care, shampoos. I'm trying to think. You just have to read labels.
So
Um,
labels on like a hairspray bottle we need to be looking at.
yeah, and I
Uh,
would say like, and again, I mean, we're gonna as we talk a little bit, I'm sure we'll talk about kind of. I like to say I live 80/20. So
Yeah,
I
same here. Same here.
yeah I have the personality where I want to dive in and I want to do all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to get rid of all the things, all the chemicals. I want to do, but and I've realized it's not really realistic. I mean, I think some
Right.
people do that, but like I mean, even like mattresses can off gas, volatile compounds and this, like all these. I'm like, okay, I have to be really cognizant of like do what I can. But anyway,
Right.
but yeah,
Because
I
it
mean,
can get very overwhelming, as can
yeah,
anything, like even exercise or just the nutrition. It can be completely
yeah,
overwhelming on what to do. Yeah.
yeah. And there's I'm just looking. I had something that had, oh yeah, so parabens,
Uh-huh.
phthalates, oh, SLS, so the sodium lauryl and laureth sulfate, what a lot of times can be found in toothpaste,
Mm.
anything that foams, dyes and preservatives, which are in food, but they are also in medicines and personal care products, which is very interesting to me that they put like dyes and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then fragrance.
Mm.
So fragrance is very interesting because sometimes you can't really tell because if it's toxic or not, but pretty much if you're spraying a perfume from a store,
Mm-hmm.
that's a toxic chemical. They don't have the companies that make fragrance. So even in shampoos, soaps, they don't have to disclose what's actually in the fragrance because they can say it's proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
So they might say it's made of essential oils, which I think are becoming more widely known now. But also, it can be made of a ton of like man-made, lab-made chemicals that can be hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors, and they don't have to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of the main things that I look for when I am buying. And even I like to tell people too, be careful for greenwashing because a lot of products will say they're green or like organic. That
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't mean anything. It's really more of what's in your product.
Yeah. And you know what? We did a whole video on, I don't know, I shouldn't say false advertising, but
Yeah.
marketing trends and,
Yes.
saying on the nutrition side, we talk a lot
Yes.
about when it's fat free and low sugar and no
Right.
sugar added and light. And so I
Yeah.
assume that it's the same kind of thing when it comes to, those kind of products
Yeah.
saying green or showing pictures of
Yeah.
outsides on there. We have to be careful
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not an all or none person either.
Yeah.
Certain aspects of me maybe
Yeah. Yes.
for the most part I think that's a great thing to kind of say 80/20. How do you get from being so overwhelmed by all the different things out there? And
Yeah.
I mean, or do you just kind of step back and say, I know I just, for me, I want my life to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
How much, well, let me start with this. How much time does it take for somebody if they're trying to discover these new products? Did it take you a lot of time to figure out, or do you have to go to special stores, or are you like reading a bunch of labels, or was it a kind of like a little bit of a gradual progress?
Yeah. I would say probably like so it's been 11 years pretty much since I started looking at like at food labels.
Uh-huh.
So I've kind of been in this transition for 11 years. So
Uh-huh.
I'm like, it's hard to remember now. Like, when did
Yeah.
I start looking at this? When did
Right.
I start looking at this? But truly, kind of like anything, it it's just up to the person. Like how I have realized that I am an over researcher. So
Hmm.
sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes you can get like I can get too involved in like looking at all the things.
Yeah.
Um, so I always tell people like just do what you can
Hmm.
when you can with
Okay.
the means that you have.
Hmm.
Um, you don't have to face every immediately. Again, I started learning about this and I'm like, throw everything out,
Yeah.
replace all the things immediately.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
realized it's not attainable. And financially it's sometimes not doable either. I mean, you
Right.
have these products. So, as I started like finishing products, I would look for a cleaner option.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, I feel like there are a lot of products out there. There are makeup brands, there are shampoos, body washes, hand soaps. There are a lot more brands, I think, now um, that are available.
I
So
think
it's
so too. Yeah.
so hard. I shop a lot online. Like a lot of the products I get, you're not going to find at Target.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean they're super like they're not super expensive,
Right.
but you're not going to find them in a store. They're kind of more smaller businesses, and there are a couple of businesses now that are starting to, um, I would say, gather all these products and kind
Mm-hmm.
of almost like an online shop where they would sell all of these things.
Mm.
So some
Yeah.
of them you can find on Amazon too.
Gotcha. Well, so take an older adult. What would some of the
Yeah.
if they started this process of,
Yes.
and maybe just slowly, trying to adapt this type of
Yeah.
lifestyle, what are some benefits an older adult might
Yeah.
feel or see?
Yeah. And I think this goes for anyone, no
Uh-huh.
matter when you start, right? Like, same thing if you decide you want to stop drinking soda, you want to
Mm-hmm.
stop smoking,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're 60, 60, 70, it still benefits your quality of life. I read an
Right.
interesting stat that said for every dollar you invest in your health now, you actually will save $80 later
Mm.
in caring for an illness or dealing with an illness
Mm-hmm.
later. So, people are like, "Oh, well, this is more expensive." I'm like, "Well, you're
Yeah.
kind of it's a mindset shift,
Yeah.
especially as we age and we kind of get set in our ways or set in the things that we like.
Right.
You do have to change your mindset. Same thing with working out, exercising, changing what you eat. You just have to know what you're doing will benefit you. So some of the ways too, besides financially, actually, that it can save you, is you're decreasing your cancer risk. So a lot of these chemicals, and again, it's interesting once you start kind of reading in Europe, there. So Europe does not allow. There's like a whole plethora of chemicals and even like dyes and stuff in food that when you're in Europe, they don't allow them in their products.
I've heard that.
But yes, but they allow them here,
Mm-hmm.
which is very interesting. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but as you start to research, so all of these chemicals can disrupt your hormones, can disrupt your endocrine system, like your thyroid. They actually can cause cancer
Mm-hmm.
over time. And think about, and your skin, as I said, is your largest organ. It absorbs all of these chemicals. So if you're kind of getting assaulted with all these things from every angle, the way you're eating, stuff you're putting on your body, if you have plugins at home or you're spraying air freshener. I often joke because when Jenny and I were in high school, the big thing was those trees that you hang from the car. Did you
Oh
have the
yeah,
air
yeah,
freshener
yeah, of
tree?
course.
Yes, the vanilla one was my favorite. Uh, I had them in my car. They're so bad. And so now I'm like, oh my gosh, we're riding around, but I mean, we didn't know. So now we
Right,
know. So now
right.
I don't have that in my car anymore. But you're kind of from all directions. We're getting hit with all these
Yeah,
chemicals.
yeah,
So
you're
if you
right.
can decrease the amount that you're exposed to, your
Mhm.
cancer risk goes down. I would say too, even if you're somebody that has chronic headaches or chronic allergies, that could be coming from any amount of fragrance. Like it's
Mhm.
funny, when I was in college on our Christmas breaks, I would work at Bath and Body Works, which back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was the place. I had all my lotions, candles, I had all the things. And I would leave work every day with a headache. And I thought it was because we
Mm.
wore these aprons and like I thought I was standing for a long time. And that's why, and all these years later, it was like a light bulb went off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was getting a headache because I was like smelling all of that stuff
Yeah,
all day long.
yeah.
So, yeah, cancer, sleep, hormones, it, gut health, like
Mhm.
your mental health. We know that gut and mental health are related. Just your overall quality of life. I mean, for the over 60s, infertility doesn't matter, but maybe you have like children or grandchildren you
Mhm.
could pass this along to. I mean, infertility is huge, and a lot of it is because our endocrine system and our hormones are all disrupted.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, there's tons of benefits.
That's great. Let's back to kind of what you're doing now. When
Yeah,
somebody talks about going to a holistic doctor, and I know there's a lot of
yeah,
terms that we throw out there, but
yeah.
what do you know about the main difference in just what do you call it? Not a holistic doctor. What do you call
Yeah. So I work for a naturopathic
a
physician.
naturopathic physician?
Physician. Yep.
Or physician. What would be the main difference between just a regular
Yeah.
care provider and what
Right.
this type?
Yeah. And I will say the
And I know
one
they're
thing.
all different, and we can't
Yeah.
like put them in
Yeah.
certain categories. But what would we expect if we went there, like for the first
Yeah.
time?
So, and if you, as people start looking, you will see there are several categories, right? There's your MD, so our traditional doctor that we think of when we think of doctor.
Mhm.
There's now functional medicine doctors, which have mostly traditional training, but also some more what we call functional, more holistic training. There's DOs, doctors of osteopathy, I think that's what it is.
Mhm.
They're more traditionally trained. And then I work for a naturopathic physician. So I just was telling somebody today that called. Um, so naturopathic physicians go to medical school. So
Mhm.
just like an MD goes to medical school and has their rotations, she went to a naturopathic physician university program, had internships, had clinicals. Almost, I think the programs are about the same length.
Mhm.
So in Oregon, every state for naturopathic physicians, every state regulates them differently. So here in North Carolina, she cannot write prescriptions. She can't order tests like
Uh,
MRIs. She cannot actually do physical exams like anything, touching hands on patients, uh, stethoscope, heart rate. She cannot do none of that. However, in Oregon, she can do everything. They're pretty much seen as equal. So she had
huh.
an in person clinic. She did primary care, like all sorts of assessments. But every state regulates differently. It's very interesting to
Ah,
me. So, but I'd say a big difference would be the way that they look at treating the individual.
yeah.
So, um, there and I MDs generally are good people. They want to help. However, they are very limited in what they know because of the school that they go to. But that's every medical school is kind of the same. They're basically directed a symptom, figure out what it is, medicine. Like
Uh-huh.
that is kind of the only thing they have in their toolbox.
Mhm.
And again, I mean, there are times when medicines are appropriate. There's definitely time when surgery is appropriate, especially emergency surgery. But the difference here too is naturopathic physicians are looking at you as a whole person
Mhm.
and not just, I had somebody call like, I have Lyme disease or
Mhm.
I have this disease. I have hormone. I actually found the doctor I work for is my doctor. I found her because I was having hormone issues and was not getting helped from doctors. They were just like, "Oh, we don't know. Like,
Mhm.
here, take this medicine. Maybe it'll help. We don't really know why you have this." Where she is always looking at getting to the root cause, like looking at you as a whole person, and
Uh-huh.
then what is really causing this, and how do we help you? Could it be it could be supplementation wise, maybe we do blood work stuff. As I said, she doesn't write prescriptions. Occasionally, we'll have a patient that we need to refer out for a script,
Mhm.
but very
Mhm.
rarely. So, yeah, it's really just looking at the person as a whole. And I say too, there's a lot more time taken in an appointment. I'd say you go to a doctor and they're like, 5 minutes in, they're,
Yeah.
they're typing. There's no, okay, what are you doing? Okay, well, I'm going to write you a script. Come back in a month. You go
Mhm.
back in a month. There's no answers. Like it's just this continual thing. So whereas she
Yeah.
really has time to sit down and talk, we do a lot more extensive testing
Mhm.
um, beyond blood work. A lot of testing that doctors just they either don't find value in because they don't understand it because they're not taught it.
Mhm.
It's just a different way of assessing hormones. So a lot of times, for example, we'll have patients that they're like, "Well, my doctor tested my hormones." I'm like, "Well, they did maybe a blood work, but we have like a urine-based hormone test that looks at hormones over X number of hours. It looks at all these factors to really figure out what is going on."
Mm.
And I will say the one thing too is when, if you're I always try to tell people too, just if you're looking for a more holistic practitioner, you
Mhm.
really need to look at um, not just their qualifications, but kind of talk to them about their experiences and their schooling because what's happening now is they're which I think it's great. I think a lot of people have really discovered that, the traditional medicine is not helping them and they're
Mhm.
looking for alternatives. And it's funny to call it alternative medicine because it's not, because this is basically going back to what we would have done
Right,
before.
right. Should almost be the other
Um,
way
yeah, but
around.
um, there's functional medicine practitioners. There are, DOs. There are naturopathic physicians who, again, as I said, they're doctors. But then there are people that are calling themselves naturopathic doctors
Mhm.
or like doctors when they're not physicians. And I'm not saying they may have a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of knowledge and I am not a doctor. But there are certificates you can get, there are courses. So I just always tell people, just really be aware when you are signing up to work with a practitioner.
Mhm.
There are chiropractors that will do some of this testing.
Mhm.
um, and I love my chiropractor, but she doesn't have the like medical background physician wise to assess some things. So that's just something, a little tidbit, just if people
Yeah,
are looking for doctors to kind of be aware there are differences too.
that's good information. I just learned a lot right there, so thank you for that. So what would you what are some baby steps for people? Like
Yeah,
let's start with say they're at the grocery store and I talk to my people about this a lot. I want them to be masters at looking at that label so that they
yeah,
can turn it really quickly and say, nope, you know.
yeah,
Um, what's some baby steps that we can do for somebody who's very new to this, starting
yeah,
with maybe what are some quick red flags on nutrition labels? I know you mentioned some things earlier,
yeah.
but and then what are some small steps they can take to maybe get this way?
Yeah. So I would say nutrition wise, dyes for sure. And of course, I'm sure you guys have already talked about the first thing on the label is like the what's most, but
You're
even
right.
so with this stuff, there's still stuff in there that if I can avoid it, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this too, uh, the least amount of ingredients is the
Mhm.
best.
Yep.
But I always look for things like oils, so like
Mhm.
soybean oils, any not like olive oil, but
Mhm.
like processed oils,
Yes.
vegetable, like, and it's funny because, I grew up with my mom like baking cakes using canola oil,
Yeah.
vegetable oil. They're really bad for us. But who knew?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm sure,
Crisco
butter,
lard is
right?
what my mom used.
Oh, like butter was vilified. We had
Yeah.
margarine. I'm like, margarine is like a step away, one ingredient or something away, one chemical away from being plastic. So,
Yeah.
I've kind of gone back to that stuff too. Like butter is
Mhm.
great. Like
Mhm.
even just sugar, like
Mhm.
organic sugar. If I need to make a recipe, I'm going to use, flour, butter, sugar. Anyway, but so oils, um, BHT is like a chemical. I look out for that, or and there's I think it's BHA as well. I think they have like two. I always look for those two things. Um, dyes, obviously, any dye. They're just usually labeled red dye,
Yeah.
yellow dye, whatever.
Bad news.
Um, for breads and stuff, there's something called datum. It's usually all caps. That is a preservative, so I usually look for that and try to avoid that.
Okay.
I mean, there's occasions where I'll be at the grocery, like if I want something, like it'll have it in it, and I'm like, again, 80/20. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure the fast food, if I go to Chick-fil-A, I'm sure their rolls have, and I've actually seen exposés about their chicken, the breading, the
La
roll,
la
and I'm
la
like,
la la.
yes,
Just
yes.
kidding.
Because I just you can't I guess you can live that way if you want. And if I had a disease that required me, if I had cancer, for instance, and I needed to go hardcore,
Mhm.
then I would.
Mhm.
But I also am like, I'm living, you take out what you can, you do the best you can. So anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say oils, dyes, and just preservatives. So pretty
Mhm.
much just finding the least amount of ingredients you can, the
Right.
whole list, most whole foods
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay away from packaged stuff. I'm
Yeah.
sure you talked about shopping the perimeter. So
Yeah.
veggies, fruits, meats, eggs. That's kind of what we eat. I mean, I
Yeah.
do have snacks for the kids. Like we have pretzels. I have snack bars, but I again try to look for the ones that have the least ingredients, and then on my, not preservatives that I would look out for.
Right. 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 And then what are some baby steps with in general some of the
Yeah,
other non-food products?
yeah, for sure. And some of them, as I said, with I've done a webinar in the past. I actually did a whole webinar on kind of switching to safer, like kind of just kind of like what we're doing right now. I told my story, we talked about this, and I
Yeah.
had seven steps so that were easy that
Oh,
you can kind of start implementing. So the first one was ditching your chemical products. Again, and you can kind of do this in steps, but your lotions,
so no
body washes,
no lemon smelling 409 anymore.
no, that stuff's horrible.
I know.
But but
My husband
again, like,
loves the smell of it. And when
I know.
during COVID, it was like you couldn't find it. And he was
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
upset.
Yeah, we've kind of switched. I mean, and there's a handful of companies out there that, and the interesting thing I learned too is even with like hand soaps, I think especially the last couple of years, it became like crazy town with hand sanitizers and antibacterial this and
Yeah.
and actually antibacterial is really bad because what it's done is
Yeah.
it's changed the microbiome and it's actually made people like, as a society more susceptible to things because we've literally sanitized our way out of
I
health.
agree
Like
with you.
there is actually a healthy level of not germs, but there is a
Right. But don't you want, don't, I mean, this
yes,
is what I always think. I always
yeah,
think it kills the good bacteria,
yeah,
and we want
yeah,
our bodies to learn to fight, and
yeah,
that's
and
what I
that's
think
what
of it.
they say too with your kids. Like, let them go outside and get dirty, like play in the dirt. Actually, it's very helpful for their
Yeah.
microbiomes growing up. But
Yeah.
yeah. So personal care, even like detergents, because think a really easy thing to do is to get rid of your dryer sheets
Okay.
and just
Yep.
use. I have wool dryer balls. I mean,
Yep.
it is a little noisy. Like you'll hear
Mm-hmm.
it. My laundry in the basement, so we don't really hear it a lot.
Uh-huh.
And I know there are some dryer sheets out there now that are. I know Molly's Suds it has I think dryer sheets that are non-chemical. I mean, they're not the only brand, but
Mm-hmm.
dryer sheets and your detergents because it's sitting. Think about your clothes; you're wearing them all day, and
Yeah.
all the fragrance and all the chemicals are sitting and absorbing into your body. So, um, again, it's a shift, right? You're like, I think too, sometimes scents have give us memory. So, you
Mm-hmm.
smell something and you remember this and you like
Yeah.
it. So that's kind of been a shift as well, just getting out of that. So yes, ditch all your chemical products. And as I said, you can ditch them slowly. You finish something, I guarantee you there's an alternative to your favorite face cream, um, favorite lotion. Sometimes it takes trying one or two or three to find your favorite, but there's something. So ditch those. Um, Ditching candles and air fresheners. Again, I know people are like, wait, but they're all that fragrance is really unhealthy. And even in candles, sometimes in the wick, I think like some of them can be healthy. Like there are like more beeswax based ones that have like cotton wicks. I ditched candles probably 8 years ago, so
Mm-hmm.
I just use like and they're everywhere now. Diffusers, essential oils. If I want to
Yeah.
smell stuff, I'll use that.
Yeah.
So ditch all that stuff. We talked about foods. That's a simple switch, really. Just going more whole. Which I mean, if you guys are watching this with Jenny, you're going to be healthy anyway, so that's going to be easy. You're already doing that stuff. Plants, which I say plants and even air filters, like make sure you're changing out your air filters.
Mm-hmm.
We have an air doctor. It is like a floor unit air filter that actually filters like all the things, pet dander, all. And what I just read was that it filters COVID bacteria too, COVID virus. So it's like some viruses and stuff. So we have that in our house. I'm not a plant person. Plants are awesome, and I tell people to get them. But like one, we don't have a lot of room for plants, and two, I will kill them.
I will kill them too. I'm terrible.
I'm like, but they're a good one. And then
Okay.
tossing out your plastics. So
Okay.
um, instead of your Tupperware, like I've kind of made the transition to at least non BPA
Okay.
food storage or glass,
Yeah.
even water bottles, stuff like that. Um, a super easy one is to just take off your shoes when you come inside.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes like I know it's hard too when you're a guest at someone's house. Like I don't know, sometimes I wear my shoes at other people's houses, but we do drop pretty much all of our shoes in the kitchen
Mm.
because I learned that, which obviously there's dirt, but also your bottom of your shoes can carry like dirt, viruses, pesticides, and the most gross one is bathroom matter.
I
So
was
think
about to
about like
say, yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, think about if you use a public bathroom, but even
Yeah.
not, like think about what you're walking around on, and that gets tracked throughout your house.
Yeah.
So that's a super easy one. And then also think about water. The last thing, I kind of had seven easy tips. So the last thing was water. Get a water filter, and I don't mean a Brita water filter because that
Mhm.
doesn't work to do this. Some of them are an investment. but I would look for ones that, filter out all the chemicals, but also fluoride. Um, Little known, we have fluoride in our water here. I don't understand why, because it is actually a neurotoxin. It is bad for us.
Mm.
We kind of got on this. What I was reading was a long, long time ago, before we had fluoride in our water. Fluoride is like a chemical byproduct. And so they were looking for something to do with it. And so they decided to add it to our water. And they were like, yeah, it's great for your teeth. No, it's actually really
Mhm.
horrible for your teeth, but it's a neurotoxin, and it can disrupt your endocrine system. So I have it's called a Berkey. It's like a countertop unit, and it has water filters and then fluoride filters. But there's
Wow.
multiple units. You just kind of have to do your research. See,
Yeah.
there's whole house units. I've put a shower filter on our shower. I haven't found a fluoride one yet, but just to try to get some of the chemicals in because there's tons of junk in our water. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are kind of just 7
Wow.
areas you
Fascinating.
can start with. Yeah.
I mean, I have got to end on that note because that
Yeah.
was so informative. Guys, I am going to list these 7 in the description of this video so that we have it. Christy, this has been very enlightening for me.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
been very informative. And I think it's just really important that we just, take control of our health, take control of our
Mhm.
life. We're the ones in decision and making our decisions, and we just have to make the best choices that we can for, I don't know, what did you say with something about what you can with what you have, or what was it?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
little
Just
saying.
Yeah, I was like, just do what you can with what you have. And I also I read something a while ago, and it was if you don't make time for your wellness, and don't make it your priority, then you will be forced to make illness, your priority,
Uh-huh.
and you'll be forced to use your time for illness. So we have
Yeah.
our choice. We either are making priorities and time for our wellness, or we're going to be forced to deal with illness later. So it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to start making changes. And like you guys are doing so good exercising and, staying healthy and building your muscle mass and aging well this way than, aging poorly and winding up as a couch potato and living out the second half of our life, just kind of like doing nothing and
Right.
just kind of,
And we want to think about how,
wasting away.
how do we want to live our golden years?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think this has been great. And I really appreciate you coming,
Yeah. Oh, sure.
get your expertise and all your knowledge and sharing it with all of us. So thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely.
Coming in like I'm acting like you're here with me, but thank you everybody for tuning in to Jenny Fit Start, and we will see you next week. Bye.